I'm in my heart. Now, in this video, I'm going to talk about ancestors. I personally think that I should actually talk about this in a basic way for people to understand how their energy works. And this will answer some frequently asked questions that people would like to know what happens on the other side, in the spiritual sense. And one of the first questions people usually ask is, who are the ancestors? Well, in honesty, your ancestors are a conscious information, knowledge based on what they have learned, depending if they've lived here on this planet before or in different planetary systems. All of that becomes a collective consciousness of information that when they are no more, it gets to be stored inside of you. And what does this say? To give you a simple answer, you are your own ancestors, and your ancestors are you. Now, this is driven from your blood DNA, which I usually say and tell people when they ask this question that water carries information, and therefore your blood does the very same thing. And all of that consciousness through a DNA expression, it lies dormant inside of you. And whenever you try to make an intention, whatever that is, through focus intention, it can be meditation or memory, interaction, you start to connect with the very same source of a consciousness at the level of what your ancestor or ancestors knew. And all of this is an expression of an energy. One energy does not separate, but the only thing that gives meaning is a different identity through a conscious understanding of what they might have learned. It can be in a physical reality, in a spiritual sense, or ancestors that have never lived here but yet are still connected to you. So as an embodiment, you having to live here on earth, you more like representing all of your ancestors at once. So most of the time it happens that you'll start to have visions and dreams. And those visions and dreams, if they're expressing into somebody that once lived, you'd like to call it your ancestor, they will show up in a sense of an answer of a question you have been asking. What is happening in my life? This expression comes in a conscious level because your consciousness, when it is normal in the physical, it can be able to appear in a spiritual. Then it becomes a reflection. But whose reflection is that? It's actually your other reflection. It's just one energy, but because you need and seek help, that reflection will come about. And the reason why this happens is because you're not entirely connected. If you were to be connected, you would actually ask questions within and get all those answers. But because you're not entirely connected, then expression of a specific ancestor that knew an answer to what you're asking will then appear and come in the form of a dream and come in the form of a vision. It is the same thing that happens when you start to call out a specific ancestor that you need help. You speak them out, and then that all expression comes outside of your mouth, and what stands before you the moment you light a candle, using a snuff or anything for that matter that makes you think you are able to connect to your ancestor or somebody that passed on. You're only just reaching out to their consciousness, of which is your true self. You can have the whole entire bloodline of a family or families that are living here at once. The very same consciousness of somebody that is normal is living amongst everyone in that DNA. And that DNA can be able to express itself out through a conscious understanding, which is a crystallized body. Because when I talk about a crystal, I usually tell people that a crystal is conscious and it is its true body, right? The reflection of a crystal that you see is a consciousness that is tangible in this world when you touch it. But that's the true identity of a crystal because it is a body that is crystallized. And through an expression of a consciousness, it holds a memory of knowledge it can actually be able to give you so that you learn something from it. So every time you connect with your ancestor in that way, you are reaching out to that very same crystal that has information based on what it has learned. So this is usually depending on what kind of an information you're seeking for. And for that ancestor with that conscious information will come forward, will come in the form of a dream, will come in the form of a vision. But if you know what you're asking for, you have the answer within. There's no need for that interaction because your higher self has collected all the data of information for you now to also know it naturally and generally. Therefore, you won't have any engagement with that ancestor because that ancestor is on the level of a crystallized conscious knowledge, information that has wisdom. And the only thing that you do now, you're discerning from that. You discern that information as a form of a download, right? As a form of a download. So you are walking as your own true ancestor. Even if there can be billions of ancestors, right? You carry them all within. But what is it specific you're carrying inside? It is a consciousness, the knowledge, the information, energy, which is one and not separated. It comes in different identities through a conscious understanding of what they've learned and mastered in this world. It doesn't matter how little it is, how great it is, but it will always be stored inside of your DNA. Then you live your life expressing that information. And as soon as you start to ascend, you have added more conscious information to the rest of the bloodline that never had the very same information you're just gaining right now. And automatically this improves your whole entire ancestors tree of life, because that's what it is. It is life. It is genuine. So every time you ask who are your ancestors, you're actually asking yourself. But if you're able to look within, you'll actually start to interact with this energy. And the moment you start to be conscious about it, now you won't actually have a need to beg for anything. You speak life and let things be. Right? You speak life and let things be. And the more you go in that level, you start to become a master. And from being a master, you start to become a grandmaster. Right? So you are your own ancestors. All at one, collectively. Within the pattern of your DNA or DA, you have variety of different ancestors that make up a hall of fame of ancestors that are more like a family tree that collectively are one and are united with your higher self. There comes a time when you're meditating, you start to realize that there's multiple of you. That is the very same energy of a consciousness that is crystallized based on the information it has learned, whether here on Earth or in different planetary systems through dimensions. And this Hall of Fame connects all the information to make up the source of one that is within and not without, the all. So you are the all that in different principles, it carries different information based on a conscious level of what it has studied and learned. And if it happens that you surpass all of your ancestors that lived here on this earth, then you're adding more fruit in that knowledge of what they must know. Then wherever they start to reincarnate, they start to follow the pattern of your steps. Right? It happens all the time. And I'll make an example. It might happen that your ancestor or your parent or anybody that was a potential or a great ancestor within you, they start to reincarnate. That doesn't mean that all there is that they learned is no more. It stays within you. Because if you had to open this in a expanding field, all together, experiencing each other's life, we are each other's ancestors at some point, depending what degree and level. And all of this reflection is studying and experiencing different things at the same time, so that you can be able to store all the experience and information and on a conscious level as a crystallized body you are. Because you are a crystal body. You can see this through your meditations. It only requires you to be in a deeper state of a meditation at some point for you to actually start to realize this and start to express the identity of your true reflection. Right? And like I've said before, that your blood is within this vessel is an expression of what your crystal body can give out as information. For you to be able to start downloading information and discern information, break it down. And the moment you conquer the ancestors that lived here and you make them ascend and study information, you start now to connect to the ancestors within that have never lived here, that has and carries the most genius, intelligent information about yourself and your higher self. So your higher self that looks exactly like you, but on an energy level, is the one responsible for all of these things. And you take that, what I just said, picture it in each and every one of your family members within. That's what's happening. So whenever you call out an ancestor, it is your other energy, your expression. It's always within you. It's always there. So it's not always a matter of waiting for somebody to die. If somebody dies within the family, then you have more access to connect to someone that you knew. This then gives you what? More power and access to the spiritual world. Because on a conscious level, you start to interact with your ancestors that are within and not without. But when you start to call them out, now you're expressing all that energy to be right in front of you because you believe in feeling something. And if it can't be felt inside, it's okay. You express them out, then you will feel it. The important thing is the feeling that you have and the connection that you have. It's more like putting a mirror right in front of you. And in this case, you're unable to see, but you can be able to feel. That is a conscious level of an information that has been stored to one ancestor you want to reach out to and connect to in order for you to be able to get all the answers. Then when the reflection returns back inside of you, it comes to express all the information you were seeking for through a pattern of a dream or a vision. Now I wrote something down here under the question, who are the ancestors? Just so I can be able to give you a simple analogy for you to be able to see through this, so that I can actually be able to seal this question and move on to the next, right? And what I came up with is a family tree. Picture your ancestors as a family tree, right? And I want you to go outside and look at a tree. It can be a big tree. You picture the tree as yourself, and you look at all the branches. You might think that the branches are outside, they're actually inward. And all of those branches, they represent all different types of your ancestors. If you move closer to that tree, you will realize that all branches are not the same. Some are more fruitful and some are not. There's a reason for that. You picture yourself as a tree, and every branch outside of your tree is a different ancestor. That branch represents a different identity through a specific consciousness level of information of what it has learned and studied while living here on earth. Now that branch awaits to reach out to you in whatever question you might actually ask, seeking for an answer. And based on the level of a consciousness, specific ancestor, doesn't matter if it's reincarnated or not, it still has the memory to reflect back on you how to learn and master your life. So you're like a tree. You are the main tree, but all of those branches are holding on you like this because they have something to offer. And not only that, those branches, they wish to be like you as soon as you have ascended and learned all the information there is to learn. Automatically, you are giving more fruit to those branches that are hanging. Right? So all of those branches are actually within and level with you. What you see outside of you is a different identity, spiritual or non-spiritual experience that is physical on a conscious level of a crystallized information that has been stored inside of you. So that is a valuable information. It doesn't matter that it's positive or negative, but it is a valuable information, because whatever you learn from those branches, if there's something that is imbalanced, you start to align it. So who's in control of the ancestors? It is you. But the only time when your ancestors have control over you is because you've not yet mastered yourself. For until you do, you start to be able to conquer them, right? And some of your ancestors can come as demons. Some of your ancestors will come as those who fear darkness. Some of your ancestors can come as those who feared sickness. Some of your ancestors can come as those who feared death. And you, in this case, you're going through that. You think that it is you, but it is them trying to use you as a source of healing. And that is why it is important for you to ascend. The moment you teach them not to fear and overcome the fear of death, the fear of sickness, automatically now you're giving food to your ancestors to have power as well, to ascend. Because not only all your ancestors have ascended, some are stuck inside of you. And all the fact that you're interested in what I'm saying right now, they're looking forward to it, that you help them ascend. Because they couldn't do it, but you can. Right? And I think this a tree analogy can make you be able to understand what I just said. Because I just gave you an answer that you are your own ancestors. It doesn't matter where they come from. It can be from the underworld, celestial planets, all of those planets that you read about in books, that they tell you about, they're inside of you. Look inward and you'll reach out to them all the time. And that is through your heart, unconditional love. Right? And I'm closing the chapter on that question so that I can be able to move on to the next. Now, usually people ask this question: where do the ancestors go when they die? Right? Now, this one has different layers, right? But if you heard me speak on the first question that people usually ask, you'll be able to understand what I'm about to say. Now, in an actual fact, your ancestors, when they die, they go to the fourth dimension. In your world, the fourth dimension is being called a dream world, right? But it is the fourth dimension where anything is possible. You don't die, because even your body is not physical. It is energy. It's more like it is there, but it is not there. So most of the time, when your ancestors die, they go to the fourth dimension. How do I know this? When Yeshua brought people back to life, he would actually go to the fourth dimension. Anybody can do it. It's all about what knowledge you have and possess. So when people died, Yeshua would go to the fourth dimension and he would ask them, do you want to come back? Because you still have a will to say yes and no. If it happens that the person says, yes, I want to come back to my body, then they can be easily brought back into the body and they wake up. Doesn't matter what damage has been caused. So when they die, they go to the fourth dimension. But where is this fourth dimension? Somebody might look at it as a piece of a land or a place outside of you. In honesty, all those dimensions are inside of you. And the fourth dimension is usually located in your heart. That can also be expressed on the top chakras above your head. That's where the fourth dimension is. It is within you, and that's where your ancestors go. Now, depending on a specific DNA of a person that has died, right? which will become an ancestor, a potential ancestor. But I know for a fact that anybody that dies becomes an ancestor, but on a conscious level. A lot of people think that it's something that is physical. No. You can return back and reincarnate, but your conscious understanding is one with that pattern of a DNA of a family member through a tree of life. And then when you come back here, you're now living a different life, in a sense that you're collecting a different data of information, which then will be collected and be merged with the other one you left on your last life living here on earth. So depending on the person that has died with a specific DNA, they go to the fourth dimension and they live there as an expression of a consciousness, which is a crystallized body. When you start to work on your body in terms of creating your crystallized body, you do it in a pattern of a fourth dimension that is within, through your heart. Fourth dimension, anything is possible because that's just energy. You can create whatever technology you want to bring here on earth from the fourth dimension. Right? So when your ancestors die, or somebody within the family goes to the fourth dimension, but that fourth dimension is within you, then later on it reflects as a consciousness for you to be able to learn what they have actually studied and mastered. And this will always come down as a download for you to be able to discern information. Right? So you might actually think that when somebody which is an ancestor gets to be buried, in most cases, it can be very negative because it becomes very difficult for that ancestor to ascend. And what usually does happen is their consciousness gets to be trapped in that grave. And when it gets to be trapped in that grave, it denies them access to fully ascend. So speaking on the term that all of the dimensions are within this earth, they are also inside of you. So part of somebody that has died, that has been laid in the grave at a full body capacity, their consciousness lays there, trapped within the earth. Now I know this will make you ask questions. If my ancestor or the one who passed on has been laid down in the grave and their consciousness is trapped inside, how is it that it is able to also merge within me? And to give you this answer is very simple, because you have to understand that everything that's outside of you is actually inside of you. It's just a reflection. It's just an image, and that image can be changed anytime you feel like it. So your body is a representation of earth because that's where it comes from. Hence, when you are being born, you come out of your mother's womb. The womb is a symbolism of earth itself, because right now we are inside of her. So the flesh is a representation of earth. So when somebody is buried like that, their consciousness gets to be trapped there, which also reflects on the consciousness trapped inside of you. And that's where your ancestors go. Or the one laid to rest as a DNA goes to you, with the very same pattern of a DNA shared as a family bloodline. So just because the consciousness is trapped in the grave, it doesn't mean that it's not inside of you. That's just a reflection of what's happening outside of you, which is all inward. It is the same thing that happens whenever you want to reach out to that ancestor or that who passed on. You look inward, then you'll have that reflection right in front of you, depending how you'd like it to be expressed, in a thought form, in a vision, in a dream, or actual. When you start calling that specific person's name that you want to interact with them through a candle, or what you believe in is best to do. So the very entrapment that's been exercised in this physical plane, it reflects back on you in your physical body. And that's where now you come in. you having to work on the ascension. When you start to free yourself and align yourself, that consciousness that is trapped within and not without, but through the reflection of what's inside of you that expresses itself on what's outside of you, you align yourself, you start to ascend, then that ancestor, or those who died the way they did, you get to free them so that they can be ascended through you. That is why when I was talking about this in the beginning of the video, there's somewhere I said to you that most of the time you have different feelings, pain, sadness. All of those things, they don't initially come from you only, but you are taking it from your ancestors who couldn't alleviate all of that pain. It could happen that most of those ancestors, they were part of a great war. They died very painfully. And all those traumatic experience, grief that you feel like you're crying, they're using you because they notice that your energy is on a different level. Then that opens a portal for them to use access in healing themselves so that they can also be aligned and never be a burden to anyone's DNA within the family bloodline. And this is something that will usually search for that one person which you'd like to call the chosen one to alleviate your ancestors. Because when you are the chosen one, you're not only helping the masses, but the most important thing you begin with to help is your DNA. You help free that, then it'll be much more easy to free the rest of the people in the world as your calling. So that's where your ancestors go, inside of you. But depending how they were. If they knew information, they'll serve a great purpose inside of you. They'll come up with an ascending information for you to actually upgrade yourself even higher. But if they died without any access of this information, then they become a burden to you, which will help to alleviate them to be on that level. So it all depends on how much of information they accumulated whilst they were living here, or whilst they were living here on this earth. And if somebody had the ascension information, even though they bury them in the grave, they will never be trapped, but they will be free in a form of a consciousness that reflects back on you whenever you're trying to connect with your great ancestors, that carries a very different information that will help you ascend into higher planes and dimensions. It happens all the time. And usually this draws attention to the ancestors that have never lived here, or those that have ascended that are no longer in this physical plane, trapped in Mother Nature. But they have ascended in different portals and planetary systems, which they can be able to always reflect on you through consciousness connection. That is why it is important for you to ascend. Raise your consciousness high in your vibration. You draw the rest of the Hall of Fame ancestors that make up one pattern of a great ancestors, that make up that one free energy of God within, which is your higher self. That collectively, as higher consciousness, it makes it a one in all people that have actually truly ascended from becoming masters to grand masters. So you must always know this, that your ancestors, or those who die, they come within and they become trapped. But it is different. And if it happens that somebody passes on and they burn their body, that becomes completely different. It makes things much more easy for them. Especially if they had knowledge to know how to maneuver on the other side and not just go through the light. So it always depends, right? But as I told you that this has different layers, it also usually expands in a sense that their higher consciousness goes to the fourth dimension, which is the next question I want to answer for people to be able to understand where blood goes when ancestors, or when you are required to do blood sacrifice. Just make that one question. Why do ancestors require blood sacrifice. The question you should ask yourself at times when you're having any engagement with any ancestor that will require a blood sacrifice, are they really your ancestors? Because it's easy for the fourth dimensional beings, which on this earth are known as reptilians, which in their true form, they are more like angelic beings with high advanced technology. That is harmonial energy. It's not usually like physical, but it's just a different intelligence that is able to copy a DNA in a form of a mirror that is able to reflect a same person, but differently to get what it wants, right? So, to answer this simply is over the fact that these beings are different breeds. And it's hard sometimes to sustain yourself in the fourth dimension if you've never really lived here in the third dimension physically, right? And usually when you are in the fourth dimension, you're more like formless. It is a dimension which you'd like to believe that it is a dream world, which is not really that. Most of the things that are there are formless. They are more like energy. That is why along your ascending, it is important to start creating your own body in the fourth dimension, depending on how you would like that body to be like. So that by the time you ascend, it makes it easy to use that body to enter the fifth dimension, because it has different layers to function in that energy. So these beings learned that it is very wise for them to use part of the energy of this earth so that they can be able to maintain themselves in the fourth dimension and have so much control and power. Because that's where dreams, you'd like to call dreams, or any fortune is actually more active. Because in the fourth dimension, you're able to create anything from nothing. This is more like using the free space of energy, the emptiness. Could be through manifestation, dreaming, visualization. All of that stems from the fourth dimension. The energy there is different yet balanced between separating dimensions from a lower state into a higher one. Because you cannot move to the fifth dimension without going through passing the fourth dimension first. If you pass through the fourth dimension, it makes it easy for you to go to the fifth dimension. All of that is a process of an experience. So all of these beings, they got to understand that in order for them to maintain their power, both in the physical and in the harmonial plane, or the fourth dimension, the dream state, which is highly consciousness, is to instill fear in humanity and make them sacrifice blood. This way, they'll be able to collect all of this energy and use it to their own advantage. And this happens through a pattern of programming system, or else it can never be possible. So the first generation of the ancestors that suddenly started to do blood sacrifice, they were programmed into doing it. And they were doing it seeking refuge in a deity or somebody they'd like to look out to in order for them to get the fruits they would actually require as a blessing or wishful thing. Because they were programmed to behave as such. Although you're able to get fruitful values or the things that you wish you would actually want to have, gaining that access and power has been made to be programmed that through blood sacrifice, it can be much more easy. To explain this in a simple context, the blood sacrifice, what it actually usually does, it opens a portal to the fourth dimension, and this brings all the riches and success quicker than an average way of doing it. Like, picture yourself having to dream. You're dreaming having this fancy house, all the money, and you feel that it is real. And the moment you wake up, you think that you have it all. You think that it is day. Think about that. It's quick. You never worked hard for it, right? But the moment you wake up, you feel so sad because it felt so real to you. You needed it to be there in front of you because you felt it, that you had it all. That's what's happening in the dream state. The moment you close your eyes and start to visualize, you go into the fourth dimension. But when you're doing it in that sense, you're superseding all the blood sacrifice. There comes manifestation. There's no difference between manifestation and blood sacrifice when it comes to you receiving what you want. But when you do blood sacrifice, you're asking somebody to do it for you, which are greatly potential celestial beings that are known as the reptilians, because they are celestial. And they use your ancestors as an image to be able to get that blood. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying stop doing it. This will happen on its own. But I'm just giving you information for you to understand where the blood goes. So they act on behalf of as your ancestors, appear as them, and ask you to do blood sacrifice. And within that space, this fear they instill. If you don't do blood sacrifice, you lose everything that you worked hard for. So these beings, they tend to be jealous that how is it that you got everything without you having to give what is owed to us? Because all of this didn't happen because it happened. It was more like an agreement, which part of your forefathers agreed to. And usually this can be caused by greed. And there's nothing wrong with that. Remember, Earth is all about experiencing life and learning. So they knew that if we make sure that we instill fear in people, we get more power to sustain ourselves, to sustain our immortality. If we make them separate and create wars and kill each other, we're getting the blood sacrifice in different ways, through flesh, through missing children, through animals, livestock. As a matter of fact, they came up with some livestock that are not really genuine, so that they can be able to generate the blood pattern to flow like riches to them. So when you do a blood sacrifice, whatever that you might be slaughtering or anything, you're opening a portal. It's something similar when you have to work with crystals. When you work with crystals and you combine them all together, you open a portal. You're having to engage with a celestial connection. And most of the time, you can speak and call a specific ancestor you know. So the moment you make that blood sacrifice, the portal opens, and that celestial, what you'd like to know as a reptilian, comes down to collect all of that energy. And this energy fills them up all the time through a vessel of a portal to come and take and give what you ask for, which usually it's like that, and sometimes you get to be robbed. So sometimes it could happen that your ancestors are being trapped in that level, that now they are using them to accumulate blood. But not to say that all the reptilians are bad or negative. Some are really good and genuine. And it could be sometimes that your ancestor, on the other side, they made an agreement with these reptilians that are good. And they only want to do what? Help you in exchange of you giving them the blood that it is required through a program and an agreement. So it's not always that all of these reptilians are bad or negative, no. In the world, we have what you call balance, good and bad people. That is the chaotic energy. How you use it, it's up to you. But it is best for you to know that every time there's any blood spilling, it doesn't matter how, when, and why. it always goes to these beings. This generates them. It generates a lot of things they want to see happen, irregardless of what is it that they want to see happen. But the moment you start to look inward, now you're superseding all of that. You have more power and control because now you're able to manifest things from a fourth dimension. And this happens every time. Even if you go to your heart or your mind, you're doing manifestation, you're interacting with the dream world, quote unquote, the dream world. But it is the fourth dimension. From the fourth dimension, you create anything. From nothing, you bring it here. And you start to reflect upon it in this physical reality because this is a simulation. It is a program which, through a way of manifesting, you can be able to manipulate it to your own will and advantage and start to create what you see you would like to have in this world. The best technology, whatever. The very same pattern of you having to dream, feeling in that sense, you're in the fourth dimension. Anything there is real. So there's more like a collection of different councils that have been placed in different regions in this whole entire world, communities with these angelic reptilians to always have a way to program people to come in your dreams to make you sacrifice through your ancestors so that they can keep on the process of accumulating all of this blood. But that time will go. That time will be over. And nobody's going to tell somebody to do it and not to do it anymore. You're going to feel it genuinely inside of you. And then you'll start using this. Whether physically, if you're still learning, to connect to your ancient ancestors or your crystal body within, to connect with your ancient ancestors and start to master the pattern of manifestation. It'll be a choice whether you do it through these or within. Then you start to connect with your true ancestors that are not being manipulated. And don't take this personally. All of this is just a game. Don't be mad. Don't be angry. If you do that, you're missing the point and you will fail. For the system has been mastered and it is waiting for those who come at it physically and emotionally. They've programmed that. They're waiting for that. What they're afraid of is going at them without set up principles and laws. They know that using that, you will fail. They're not scared of you if you're coming physically, but they're more scared of you if you come spiritually. And not just a basic spiritual way of connecting, but the high advanced one that is ascending. The time will come and you will understand this. The true original way of connecting to the source and everything. It is within, not without. You are the portal of rituals. For black magic lies dormant inside of you. The only thing for you to do is overcome the fear and overcome the darkness. Stop being afraid. The more you do that, you're giving them energy to have control over you, to come in your dreams and manipulate you. Sometimes it's not really important to dream all the time. It is through the power and the will for you to close your eyes and look inward and start to create images from your heart and express that reality outside of you, how you want to see your life proceed all the time. So all of this is just a game. Don't take it personal. If you do that, you will fail. They'll come for you. So you must know that you are an energy being. You're spiritual. For anything is possible. And to summarize this, all ancestors in this world are one energy in each other's expression. The difference comes to a different identity through a bloodline. For your ancestors live within your DNA, within your consciousness as a tree of life, and within the fourth dimension, that is all within you, not outside of you. It has never been outside of you, but you've been taught to think that it is outside of you. We are in each and every one's ancestors connecting. This will also allow you to have access to ancient gods. You call them with intention, they give you that energy because it is yours. We are in each and everyone's reflection, experiencing each other's ways of doing things until you learn and complete and master yourself, from being a master to be a grandmaster. So from today, know this, that your ancestors are inside, not without. For your God is inside, your higher self. There is power in closing your eyes and making things happen. You don't need to beg. This makes you to be in control of these energies, which you'd like to call them your ancestors. This is one energy, but because of a pattern of a different DNA, experience, and expression through consciousness and what your ancestors have learned, it comes to that separation. But it is just one energy. So you must learn today and keep this in mind, that your ancestors are within, not without. You speak within, there will be life. And this will happen all the time. The only thing you need to do is have faith. For you cannot have faith without you having to be under the unconditional love within your heart. Leaving your sacred space in your heart, anything is possible. And that's how you go after the system. You're not breaking anything, you're not breaking any object. They'll be waiting for that. They've mastered that. What they won't be waiting for is for you to find the kingdom within your heart. They're scared of that. They can't control that. Keep this in mind. Love and cosmic light.